Welcome to the 45th chapter of the book of Ezekiel. I had titled it Division of the Land, but it's way more than that. I should probably have called it the chapter of measurements, because that's basically what it is as far as the measurements of land and measurements of weights and so forth, and measures. As we go through, we'll see these things that are planned for this future city on the high mountain that we are told that will exist at the time. It will not be in Jerusalem. It will be west of the Sea of Galilee. I think I had a map and picture in the last chapter. And now on top of this area, which in Mount Meron, as I mentioned, I believe is where it's going to be, does have a large, huge nature reserve. It's fairly flat on the top, certainly big enough for the sanctuary, which is, as we see, will be about a mile square. And it begins, and in your measuring out the land for inheritance to the children of sons of Israel, people of Israel, you shall separate the first fruit to the Lord. Now, the aparkim, the first fruit, is what goes to God. It's more or less like we have a tax in the United States, and you give your tax to the government. And the first fruit was what the Lord's share, which would go to the ones that were working, doing the work of the Lord. And the first fruit could be in area of land, it could be in produce, could be in baked goods, all sorts of things. The first fruit, the first son or animal would be dedicated. Sacrifice an animal, a human, would be dedicated to the Lord. Pretty much what they had in the original tabernacle temple. And you shall separate the first fruit to the Lord, a holy space from the land, 25,000 in length. Now, this is interesting because I've been pulling my hair out. I'm not the greatest mathematician in the world. I barely got through just basic math, never algebra, geometry, anything in mathematics. I can consider myself an ignoramus, but I'm trying to figure this out, which makes it difficult. Is it says here, you shall set a holy space 20,000 in length. Well, it doesn't say 20,000, 5 and 20, it's 25,000 what? Feet, miles, cubits, reeds. Doesn't have it in the Greek. So I went on the internet and I went to a site and it had the King James and it had reeds. So I'm going, oh, well, there it is. It's a reed, which I thought it was, because the cubit would have made it a lot smaller. But then I said, well, I'm just going to double check. So I went to the Hebrew, pulled out my Hebrew interlinear, Green's Hebrew interlinear, and guess what? No reed in the Hebrew. It's just 5 and 20,000, the same as the Greek. So the King James people put in reed. So this is what I find it's important on having an accurate Bible, which I believe the Apostolic Bible is. And it is mentioned that this area was 20,000 in length. If it was in reeds, then it's 43 miles. Otherwise, it's quite a bit smaller. And the breadth is 17 miles. Now, this 43 length will appear in 3 different other places, but a different breadth. And it will be holy in all its limits round about. So I believe it's on Mount Meron, period at 43 miles, but in the middle it says, and there shall be from out of this a sanctuary of 1.1 mile by 1.1 mile, 4-cornered round about. Okay, a mile square for the sanctuary, and 75 cubits, 75 feet is the cubit, shall be their space round about. Now, what that is talking about, good guess. Your guess is as good as mine, 75 feet. There's space round about. And from out of this measurement you shall measure a length of 25,000, again the 43 miles, and the breadth 17 miles, and in it will be the sanctuary, the Holy of the Holies. And there shall be a portion being sanctified of the land to the priests ministering in the holy place. So it'll land around there somewhere, and it will be to the ones approaching to minister to the Lord. And it will be to them a place for houses being separated to their sanctification. So to me, a reed makes more sense than a cubit because it sounds like a large area and not too large, 43 miles length and 17 miles wide is not, and then a good portion of this would be the holy place in the middle. And then it says 25,000 in length, 43 miles, and a breadth of 34 miles shall be to the Levites ministering in the house, to them for a possession, cities to dwell in. So again, the reed makes more sense to me. At 35 miles wide, it's still a 43 miles long. Now, these are all together, one's on top of each other, east or north or south, I'm not sure. Doesn't say. And for the possession of the city you shall appoint 8.5 miles for the breadth, and the length, again, 43 miles. So this is a small 8.5 mile possession, in which manner the first fruit of the holies is to all the house of Israel, and so it shall be. And a portion shall be to the one leading, the igumeno, the hegemon, is the one leading, and more about him in a couple of chapters on down. We'll find out more about him, maybe even in the next chapter. This portion, and from this into the first fruits of the holies for the possession of the city, in front of the first fruits of the holies, and in front of the possession of the city, the parts towards the west, and from the parts towards the west towards the east, and the length as one of the portions from the limits of the parts towards the west and to the limits towards the east of the land. It will be to him for a possession in Israel. So the hegemon gets this area of land. And the ones guiding, then there's a plural, the hegemons are ones guiding, my people shall not tyrannize any longer. So they will not, somehow they will be constrained and to do the right thing in this period of time. The hegemon Jesus, and I will find out if we go through this more. But the house of Israel shall inherit the land according to their tribes. So the tribes, again, will have to do with the division, and we'll get into that in another chapter. Thus says the Lord God, let it be enough to you, O ones guiding Israel, the ones guiding it, whoever and whenever. Let injustice and misery be removed, and observe equity and righteousness. Lift away the tyrannies from my people, says the Lord God, and this could be for the time of Ezekiel, could have been for the past, and it could be for the future and the time today of these rulers being told what they are to do. But did they do them? I don't see that they have done them yet. Crucified Christ. Now we have Israel again as a nation, but I don't see them, the rulers, observing righteousness and equity. Of course, I'm not there, so I suppose there is an argument for that. And then it continues, the weights and measures now, again, other measurements. And there shall be to you a just yoke balance scale, a yoke, a zygote comes from that. It's a yoke was also used for two oxen to pull a plow. The yoke put on their necks, uses that for humans at times for slavery. And this also used, a yoke was a balance for weights. You put a 10 10 pounds here, and then you put the 10 pounds of whatever it is over here, and when it's straight across, then you have the 10 pounds. If the 10 pounds goes down, then you don't have 10 pounds over on this side. You only have less. As you put it on there, it'll come up. That is the yoke, and it's a balance scale, as I added to make it a little bit plainer. And a henix is a measure that was used. I'm not going to go into all the different measurements here. You can go on the internet and find out what they equaled. The henix measure will be for your measure. And the henix, in like manner, will be one, number one to receive the 10th of the homer. One of them will be to receive the 10th of the homer, a gomer in the Greek. A henix and a 10th of the gomer is an ephah. Well, it's got two I. It should only be one accent. Well, I'm not sure there. I better highlight that. Let's see, what am I going to highlight it with? We'll do an underline. There. Now I'll know when I go through there to figure that out. Should only be one accent mark. And the stathmion is a weight. Apparently, a stathmion is 20 oboli. Pente sikli, 5 shekels. It's worth 20 oboli is 5 shekels, and 25 shekels. So there's these different weights: 25 shekel, 5 shekel, and 10 shekel. Let it be to you for the mina. Well, maybe this here is 25 and 5 and 10. Well, I'm not sure. 25, 35, 40 to be a mina. First fruit. And this is the first fruit which you shall separate. The 6th part, meros, is a part of the measure metru from the gomer or homer of the wheat. And the 6th part of the it's an ephah from the koru, and there's another one, a kor, of the barley. Different weights here of a kor and a homer and an ephah. And the order concerning the olive oil, kotilin, is a cup. I didn't use kotilin because nobody knows what a kotilin, but it means a cup of olive oil from deca kotilon, 10 cups. For the 10 cups are a gomer. Now, apparently this gomer takes a dry measure and a wet measure as what we have pints. I think they do you can have a pint of dry or wet, or quart. And a sheep from the 200 sheep as a cutaway portion from out of all the families of Israel, patrion, paternal comes from that word, for sacrifices and whole burnt offerings, and for a sacrifice of deliverance offering. All of these, as we mentioned before, the sacrifices will be reinstituted to atone for you an appeasement, says the Lord God. Now, the forgiveness of sins, how that is going to relate to the people and Jesus at this time, it doesn't tell us. And all the people shall give this first fruit to the one aphigumeno, the guiding, the hegemon of Israel. And the whole burnt offerings will be through the hegemon, the one guiding. And the sacrifices and the libation offerings in the holidays, which will come back, and in the new moons and in the Sabbaths, and in all the holidays of the house of Israel, he, that is the hegemon, the ruler, shall offer, or the guide, one guiding, shall offer of the sacrifices for sin, and the sacrifice offering, and the whole burnt offerings, and the offerings of deliverance to atone for the house of Israel. So the hegemon receives the first fruit, and he offers sacrifices for sin, sacrifice offering, whole burnt offerings, deliverance offering, and for the atonement. So he does all of these things. And one more, and we get down to verse 22. And now, the holidays. Thus says Kyrios Theos. In the proto, we have first, proton, first mini, day 1 of the month, you shall take a calf from out of the oxen, unblemished, to atone, make an appeasement, the holy place. And the priest shall take, the ones from Zadok, from the blood, and shall put it upon the doorposts of the house, and upon the 4 corners of the temple. So now, we have a different type of thing here of putting the blood on the doorposts of the house and the 4 corners of the temple. Now, if the Jews decide to build a temple today, but it doesn't have the glory of God in it, and they make it up, they will not be able to. They may have a house and they may try to do the same thing, but they're not going to have the glory of God in it. So the efficacy of it would be questionable. Now, the people may think is what they need to do, but if something is put up false, like a church that puts up a priest that can take a confession and give a forgiveness of sins, and a person relies upon that and thinks they have been forgiven, well, and they haven't, then the fault blame falls on the priests, that regimen of that church. The same with a temple that has been put up that really does not offer what God would have them to have through His Spirit, glory being there in the temple. So anyway, the doorposts of the gate of the courtyard, so that's where they put the blood. And so shall you do in the 7th month, day 1 of the month, for each senseless and simple one. And you shall atone for the house. So I guess there apparently is going to be senseless and simple people that will have an atonement, an appeasement for the house. And in the 1st month, the 14th of the month, will be to you the Pascha, a Passover holiday. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. So the 14th of the month, as it was in the past. And the one guiding the hegemon shall offer in that day for himself and for all the people of the land a calf for a sin offering. So that's the other thing I was mentioning that the hegemon does, offers for himself on the Passover and the people. And 7 days of the holiday feast he shall offer whole burnt offerings to the Lord, 7 calves, 7 rams, unblemished, daily, 7 days. And for a sin offering, a kid of the goats daily, and a sacrifice offering. And he shall prepare a cake for the calf and the cake for the ram, and a hin of olive oil for the cake, and that's an in, so that's another measurement. And in the 7th month, the 15th of the month, during the holiday, he shall offer according to the same 7 days, and as the sacrifices for the sin offering, and as the whole burnt offerings, and as the gift offering, and as the olive oil. All these things reinstituted with the glory of God coming down into this beautiful temple, and all the Jewish people walking as God had them planned to do from when they first became a people, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, even though thousands of years of rebellion, before 1,000 years or more before Christ, and then a couple thousand or who knows how many years afterwards, finally they will be in a right standing to God, and they will be in this holy temple at this high mountain that will be west of the Lake of Galilee, with, as we find out, water running out from the holy place. We'll go into that in the last chapter, 48. But next chapter, 46, the manner of obeisance. And obeisance in the King James, the Greek word for obeisance, proskenevo, is translated as worship, which is fine. They wanted to make it worship. They could make it any word they wanted. But today a worship has taken on a whole new meaning. It's playing a guitar and drums, and which was actually considered praise. And the obeisance is actually falling down on your face in front of a higher authority than yourself, be it the head of a family or a governor or a general or king or God. We'll find out about this manner of obeisance and the other things that chapter 46 will have us to find out about in this new reinstitution of the temple. And hope you'll join us in the next chapter, and God bless.